A week after a ministerial committee for legislation gave an approval of bills, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu decided to freeze the parliamentary process that would ratify bills aimed at limiting foreign funding of Israeli human rights organizations. According to sources, Netanyahu decided to indefinitely postpone appeals submitted against the ministerial committee for legislation's vote, meaning that Knesset members won't be able to ratify the bills. Under the bills, which are sponsored by two members of Netanyahu's Likud party, MKs Tzipi Hataveli and Ophir Acunis, said that they would cap foreign governments' contributions to political non-governmental organizations at 20,000 shekels. Officials close to the bill's proponents told Haaretz on Saturday that they feel Netanyahu is working to jam these bills. Maybe he was scared from the criticism he had heard from foreign representatives and from the Attorney General. The European Union and the United States, as well as other countries, have been pressing Netanyahu's office, urging the new legislation be scrapped. Near the bill's approval in the cabinet, EU's ambassador to Israel, Andrew Stanley, contacted the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor, Yaakov Amidror, and warned him that the passage of the legislation could harm Israel's standing in the West as a democratic country. Syrian President Bashar Assad was quoted on Saturday as saying that he would press on with the crackdown against anti-government unrest in his country, despite increased pressure from the Arab League to end it. He told Britain's Sunday Times newspaper the conflict will continue, and the pressure to subjugate Syria will continue as well. However, I assure you that Syria will not bow down and that it will continue to resist the pressure being imposed on it. Residents said that at least 2 rocket-propelled grenades hit a main ruling Ba'ath Party building in Damascus early Sunday in the first insurgent attack reported inside the Syrian capital since an 8-month uprising began. Assad said there would be elections in February or March when Syrians would vote for a parliament to create a new constitution, and that would include provision for a presidential ballot. The Arab League, a powerful political group of Arab states, set a deadline of Saturday for Syria to comply with a peace plan involving a military pullout from around restive areas and threatened sanctions if Assad failed to halt the violence. However, activists from the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that 12 civilians were killed in raids by government forces on Saturday, while 2 army defectors died when they clashed with the army in Homs, which has become a center of armed revolt against more than 40 years of Assad family rule. The United Nations says 3,500 people have been killed during the crackdown on the protests, which began in March. But Assad disputed this and put the number killed at 619. Sweden has funded the publication of an anti-Israel booklet titled Colonialism and Apartheid, the Israeli Occupation in Palestine. According to the report, the Swedish government transferred 390,000 shekels, roughly $104,600, under the guise of humanitarian aid to a Swedish-Palestinian solidarity group for the creation of the ornate 40-page booklet. The brochure's authors accuse Israel of racist legislation, ethnic cleansing, racial segregation, establishing an apartheid regime in the territories, and bombing Palestinian civilian homes. Furthermore, the brochure calls for a boycott of the Jewish state. Israel and the Jewish community in Sweden condemned the measure. Sweden's foreign aid minister joined the criticism, and Israel's ambassador to the Scandinavian state, Benny Dagan, has met with members of the parliamentary Sweden-Israel Friendship Association and urged it to demand the funds allotted towards anti-Israel activity to be cut. Dozens of Israeli women stripped off their clothes Saturday in a show of solidarity with the 20-year-old Egyptian blogger who caused a stir in the Arab world last week when she posted a naked photo of herself in protest against the limits of free expression in her country. Touched by the spirited protest measure, some 40 Israelis posed for a nude group shot in support of the Egyptian activists Aliyah Magda El-Mahdi, who received threats and harsh criticism for her actions. Unlike El-Mahdi, however, the Israeli women did not fully display their intimate parts for the camera. The brains behind the operation is Or Tepler, a 28-year-old who opened a Facebook event inviting women to, quote, show support in a nonviolent and legitimate way for a woman who is just like us, young, ambitious, full of dreams, and evidently has a developed sense of humor. More than 100 women said they would attend. The participants were photographed holding a sign saying, Love Without Limits, and homage to Aliyah al-Mahdi, Sisters in Israel. It was 55 years ago that Charlton Heston famously donned the old tunic to play Moses in the Ten Commandments. Once again, Hollywood will revisit the life of Moses, this time with Steven Spielberg at the helm. Spielberg is in official talks with Warner Brothers to direct the spectacle film. Incidentally, Warner Brothers inked a deal with Mel Gibson earlier this year to produce a biopic of Jewish warrior Judah Maccabee. Gods and Kings, as the project is presently titled, will cover the entire breadth of Moses' existence from birth to death, including the Jewish emancipation from Egypt, the burning bush, the receiving of the Ten Commandments. The biopic was written by Michael Green and Stuart Hazeldine and will be produced by Dan Lim and Mati Lashem. After being out of the spotlight for a couple of years, Spielberg has two high-profile pictures slated to open next month. The first one, The Adventures of Tintin, opening December 21st, and War Horse, opening December 25th. Presently, Mr. Spielberg is busy at work on the biopic of Abraham Lincoln, starring the venerable Daniel Day-Lewis. Lincoln is scheduled to release in December 2012.